Welcome to Learn English with Legends. In this video, you'll improve your English while discovering the inspiring story of Shirin Ebadi, the Iranian lawyer who turned her courage into a voice for justice, equality, and human rights.
Part 1, Early Life and Education. In the heart of Hamadan, a historic city in western Iran, a little girl was born on June 21st, 1947. Her name was Shirin Ebadi. No one could have imagined that this quiet, curious girl would one day become the first Muslim woman in the world to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Shirin grew up in a family that valued both education and fairness. Her father, Muhammad Ali Ebadi, was the head of the National Land Registry Office and a man of strong moral principles. He often told his children that truth and justice were the pillars of a meaningful life. Her mother, a warm and caring woman, encouraged her to read, question, and dream beyond limits. From an early age, Shirin loved reading. She would sit near the window with her books, fascinated by stories of people who changed the world, teachers, writers, and scientists who used knowledge to make life better for others. When her family moved to Tehran, Shirin began to see a different world, one filled with opportunities but also inequalities. She noticed that women were often treated differently from men, and even as a child, it didn't feel right to her. She once said later in life, "I grew up believing that men and women are equal in every way. It was shocking to see that society didn't think the same." At school, Shirin was always among the top students. Her teachers admired her determination and sharp mind. She dreamed of becoming a lawyer, someone who could defend people's rights and make a difference in society. In 1965, she entered the University of Tehran's Faculty of Law, one of the most prestigious schools in the country. It was a bold choice for a woman at that time, but Shirin didn't care about what was normal. She cared about what was right. Her years at university were full of hard work and ambition. She spent long nights studying civil law, justice systems, and the philosophy of rights. Her professors were impressed not only by her intelligence, but also by her courage to question traditional beliefs. In 1969, Shirin graduated with top honors. But that wasn't enough for her. She wanted to continue learning. She went on to complete her doctorate in law in 1971. At only 23 years old, she became one of the youngest people ever to earn such a degree from Tehran University. That same year, something remarkable happened. Shirin Ebadi became the first woman judge in the history of Iran. It was a groundbreaking moment, not just for her, but for all Iranian women who dreamed of equality. She began working as a judge at the Tehran City Court, and later became the Chief Justice of the Court of Tehran. Her male colleagues were surprised by her confidence and professionalism. She treated every case with deep fairness and empathy, earning respect even from those who doubted her at first. She believed that justice had no gender, that truth should never depend on whether the person speaking was a man or a woman. Throughout the 1970s, she worked tirelessly. Her courtroom became a place where ordinary people felt safe because she listened to their stories and sought real justice, not just legal formality. Outside of work, Shirin was also a wife and a mother. She married Javad Tavasolian, an electrical engineer, and together they had 2 daughters. Balancing her family life and her demanding career was not easy, but she managed with strength and grace. As the decade went on, Iran was entering a period of great political and social change. The country was filled with tension, protests, and questions about its future. Shirin could feel that something big was coming, something that would challenge everything she had worked for. But even then, she held on to her values: justice, honesty, and equality. She believed that no matter how the world changed, these principles would never lose their importance. What she didn't know yet was that the next few years would test those beliefs more than ever before. The Iranian Revolution of 1979 was about to change her life and the course of her country forever. Part 2, Career and Challenges After the Revolution. The year was 1979, and Iran was standing on the edge of history. The revolution had come, filled with hope, fear, and the promise of change. Like millions of others, Shirin Ebadi watched as her country transformed almost overnight. But with that transformation came something she never expected: the loss of her position as a judge. The new laws declared that women could no longer serve as judges. For Shirin, it was more than a professional loss. It was a deep personal wound. She had spent years building her career, believing in the power of justice and equality. And now, just because she was a woman, all of it was taken away. She was told she could stay at the courthouse, but only as a clerk and assistant. Shirin refused. She believed that accepting such a position would mean accepting injustice. For the first time, she felt what so many others in her country felt: the pain of being silenced. But Shirin was not someone who would surrender to silence. For several years, she stayed at home, raising her daughters and writing legal articles. Yet, inside her heart, there was a fire, the same fire that had driven her since childhood: the belief that every human deserves justice. When the Iranian Bar Association finally allowed her to practice law again in the early 1990s, she returned to the courtroom, not as a judge this time, but as a lawyer fighting for those without a voice. She began taking on human rights cases, the kind of cases most lawyers were afraid to touch. She defended children, women, and political prisoners, people accused of crimes they often hadn't committed. Her goal was not fame or money. She wanted to remind her country that justice must belong to everyone, even to the powerless. One of her most famous early cases was that of Iranian, a young girl who was brutally murdered by her father. At that time, the law allowed fathers to escape punishment for killing their own children. Shirin couldn't accept that. She took the case and fought fiercely to raise awareness, writing articles, speaking in public, and pushing the courts to see that the law itself was unjust. Even though she couldn't change the law immediately, her voice started a national conversation about children's rights in Iran. She once said, "When you see an unjust law, you have two choices. You either stay silent or you fight to change it." Shirin chose to fight. She also defended journalists and writers who were arrested for expressing their opinions. Every case came with danger: phone threats, government warnings, and public attacks in the media. Still, she continued her work with determination and calm. In 1994, she founded the Defenders of Human Rights Center in Tehran, an independent organization that offered free legal advice to political prisoners and their families. This center became a symbol of hope for many Iranians who felt forgotten by the system. But her courage came with a price. The government began to monitor her closely. Her office was raided more than once, and her books and papers were confiscated. In 2000, she was arrested for the first time. Her crime was helping to expose the truth behind the murder of several Iranian intellectuals. She spent weeks in solitary confinement, a dark, cold cell where she had no idea what would happen next. Yet, even there, she found strength. She prayed, reflected, and promised herself that if she ever got out, she would fight even harder for justice. When she was finally released, she did not hide. She returned to her work, more determined than ever. The experience had changed her, not into a victim, but into a symbol of resilience. By the late 1990s, Shirin Ebadi had become a well-known figure in Iran and beyond. She gave lectures, wrote books, and spoke about the challenges faced by women and children in her country. Her voice was calm but powerful. Her message was simple: democracy begins at home, in how we treat our families, our neighbors, and our fellow citizens. Despite increasing pressure, she refused to leave Iran. She believed that change could only happen from within. As she often said, "I will not leave my country. I will stay and fight with my pen." Shirin's story was now spreading across the world. People admired her courage, a woman who stood up for justice, even when it meant standing alone. But soon, something extraordinary was about to happen, something that would make her name known everywhere. In 2003, her lifelong dedication to peace and equality would be recognized on the world's biggest stage. Part 3: Winning the Nobel Peace Prize and global recognition by the early 2000s, Shirin Ebadi had already become a symbol of courage in Iran, a lawyer who dared to speak the truth when many were afraid to. Her work had inspired countless people, especially women, who saw in her a living example that one person's voice could make a difference. But even then, Shirin never imagined that her dedication would one day bring her the most prestigious award in the world, the Nobel Peace Prize. It was the morning of October 10th, 2003. Shirin was at home in Tehran when she received a phone call that would change her life forever. On the other end of the line, a reporter's voice said, "Congratulations, Dr. Ebadi. You've won the Nobel Peace Prize." For a moment, she thought it was a joke. She couldn't believe it. Her name, an Iranian woman, being called as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Then it sank in. Tears filled her eyes, not because she wanted fame, but because this award wasn't just for her. It was for all the people in Iran who had fought for justice, equality, and freedom. The Nobel Committee in Oslo praised her as a courageous woman who has never bowed to authority and who has stood up for democracy, human rights, and especially the rights of women and children. Shirin Ebadi was the first Muslim woman, the first Iranian, and one of the few lawyers in history to ever receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Her victory sent shockwaves around the world. In Tehran, thousands of women celebrated in the streets. Around the globe, her name became a symbol of hope, a reminder that real change doesn't always come from power or wealth, but from moral strength and persistence. When she traveled to Oslo, Norway, to receive the award, the world watched as she stood on stage, calm, dignified, and fearless. Her speech was powerful yet humble. She began by thanking her fellow Iranians and continued with words that moved the audience to silence. As a Muslim woman, I am proud to show that Islam is not a religion of violence and terrorism, but one of peace and compassion. True Islam respects human rights, democracy, and equality. The audience gave her a long-standing ovation. For many, it was not just an acceptance speech. It was a declaration of courage, truth, and faith in humanity. After receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, Shirin's life changed dramatically. She became a global ambassador for human rights, traveling across countries, meeting world leaders, and giving lectures at universities. Wherever she went, she carried a message of peace, tolerance, and the belief that education and justice are the foundations of a better world. She met people like Nelson Mandela, Kofi Annan, and Jimmy Carter, sharing ideas on how to make justice universal. Yet, despite her growing fame, Shirin remained simple and humble. She still lived in her modest Tehran apartment, still handled cases for free, and still faced the same government pressure as before. But fame also brought more danger. The Iranian authorities were not happy that one of their own citizens had gained such international recognition. Her books were banned in Iran, her lectures monitored, and her name often attacked in conservative newspapers. Still, she refused to be silenced. She continued running the Defenders of Human Rights Center, helping prisoners of conscience and victims of injustice. She wrote several books, including Iran Awakening and The Golden Cage, sharing her experiences with the world. Her courage inspired not only Iranians, but also women across the Middle East and beyond. In every speech, she reminded people that freedom and justice are not gifts, they are responsibilities. You cannot sit and wait for someone else to bring you freedom. You must stand up and claim it yourself, she often said. Over time, her international presence made her a voice not just for Iran, but for humanity, representing every person who had ever been silenced, discriminated against, or denied basic rights. Yet, as her influence grew globally, so did the pressure back home. The Iranian government began seizing her belongings, closing her offices, and harassing her colleagues. Her Nobel Prize medal was even confiscated temporarily, something that shocked the world. Through all this, Shirin stood firm. She often told journalists, "They can take my belongings, but they can't take my beliefs." Her resilience only made her more respected. By the late 2000s, she was not just a lawyer. She was a symbol of peaceful resistance. Her story appeared in textbooks, documentaries, and international human rights reports. She became a living lesson that the pen can be stronger than the sword, and that one woman's courage can echo across generations. Shirin Ebadi's Nobel Prize was not the end of her journey. It was the beginning of a global mission. A mission to show that justice is not limited by borders, gender, or religion, but is a universal right for all. And although her path would soon take her away from Iran, her heart and her fight would always remain tied to her homeland. Part 4. Exile and continuing the fight for justice. By the late 2000s, the pressure on Shirin Ebadi in Iran had grown unbearable. Her human rights work, once quietly respected, was now viewed as a threat by powerful authorities. Harassment, confiscations, and constant surveillance made it clear that staying in her homeland could endanger her life. With a heavy heart, Shirin made a painful decision. She would leave Iran. It was not a decision of defeat, but a strategic move, a way to continue her mission safely and more effectively. Shirin settled in London, carrying with her the weight of her country's struggles, but also the determination that had defined her entire life. From abroad, she did not slow down. She continued to speak for the silenced voices of Iran, addressing international organizations, universities, and media outlets. Even in exile, she remained deeply connected to her homeland. She worked tirelessly to support families of political prisoners, document human rights abuses, and provide legal guidance to those who had nowhere else to turn. Her voice now reached millions around the world, and her message was clear. Distance cannot weaken a cause. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Shirin also became an inspiration for a new generation of activists, especially young women in Iran and the Middle East. Her life proved that courage is not defined by borders, and that standing for justice often requires sacrifice. Despite being far from Tehran, she never abandoned hope that change was possible within her country. Through conferences, articles, and books, she educated the world about the struggles of Iranians under oppressive laws. She spoke not with anger, but with dignity, appealing to the shared values of humanity and fairness. Her efforts were recognized internationally. Shirin received honorary doctorates from universities around the world, and countless awards celebrated her unwavering dedication to human rights. Yet she always emphasized that her accolades were not for her personal glory. They were for the millions fighting for justice quietly, without recognition. Through her work in exile, Shirin also tackled issues beyond Iran. She advocated for peace, democracy, and human rights globally, teaching the world that the principles she had defended in Tehran were universal. Even as the world celebrated her courage, she never forgot the ordinary people whose stories had shaped her mission: children, women, prisoners, and families whose voices were ignored. She remained committed to using law, education, and peaceful advocacy as tools to create real change. Shirin Ebadi's life in exile proved that true strength is not in staying comfortable or silent, but in standing firm for justice, even when the risks are high. Her story inspired a generation of lawyers, activists, and ordinary citizens to believe that one person can make a difference, no matter how oppressive the system around them may seem. "I carry Iran in my heart," she said. "Even from far away, I will continue to fight for the rights of my people." Through her exile, her influence expanded worldwide. From London, she became a bridge between Iran and the international community, showing that hope, courage, and justice can travel beyond borders. Her legacy was growing, not only as a Nobel laureate, but as a living example of resilience, morality, and unwavering dedication to human rights. Part 5. Later Years and Lasting Legacy. Even in her later years, Shirin Ebadi continued to inspire the world. Her exile did not stop her from speaking out against injustice or from helping those in need. She traveled extensively, meeting students, activists, and leaders, sharing her experiences, and encouraging people to stand up for human rights. Her books, articles, and speeches became educational tools, teaching not only law but also the values of courage, fairness, and persistence. Shirin reminded the world that justice is not a privilege, but a duty for everyone. Back in Iran, her influence persisted despite attempts to silence her. Young lawyers and activists drew inspiration from her courage. Her story became a beacon of hope for those who face oppression, proving that one person's commitment can create ripples across a nation and beyond. Shirin also continued to advocate for women's rights, pushing for equality in education, employment, and legal protection. She emphasized that empowering women is essential for the progress of any society. When women are free, societies flourish, she often said. Over the years, she received countless awards and honors, but she remained humble. Her goal was never personal recognition. It was a pursuit of a fair and just world. Even with global fame, she maintained a simple lifestyle, dedicating her energy to those who had no voice. Her work reminded people that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Shirin Ebadi's life is a testament to the power of education, integrity, and perseverance. From a young girl in Hamadan with a love for reading to a lawyer, judge, and Nobel laureate, she demonstrated that one person's actions can ignite hope and change lives. Her story continues to inspire generations around the world. Students learn from her example, activists find courage in her journey, and ordinary people realize that standing up for justice is never in vain. As she often reminds her audience, no one is too small to make a difference. Your voice, your actions, and your courage matter. Shirin Ebadi's legacy is not only in the awards she has received, but in the millions of lives she has touched, the laws she has helped influence, and the ideals she has defended. She remains a shining example of what it means to live a life devoted to truth, compassion, and justice. Her journey shows us all that true heroism is quiet, persistent, and often invisible, yet its impact can echo across generations. And so, the story of Shirin Ebadi, the girl from Hamadan who refused to accept injustice, continues to inspire, educate, and empower people worldwide.
If you enjoyed this story, you can comment your favorite legend below and tell us who you want to hear about next. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories.